Trending with the Tribune is your leading statewide source for unforgettable news about African Americans and other communities of color. We are a quarter of a century old and serve the areas of Knoxville, Jackson, Chattanooga, and Memphis. Brought to you by the Tennessee Tribune newspaper, published weekly by the Tennessee Tribune Publishing Company. Here's another edition of Trending with the Tribune, hosted by Miss June. Welcome to another edition of Trending with the Tribune. I'm your host, Miss June, the author and publisher of Let's Talk, all things business, speech, and motivation. Well, as you know, our school system, they have been pretty busy, and we have a few spicy things going on. So today, my special guest is Dr. Shawn Joseph, superintendent and former superintendent of one of the largest school systems in our nation. We're talking to the tune of well over 85,000 children. So today we will talk with Dr. Shawn Joseph about some things in regards to his departure, his future, and of course how he will always continue to have such passion and concern for literacy and education. Dr. Joseph, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here with you again.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Joseph, we've had a shakeup, as they call it, for lack of a better word. And of course, there are so many people that care for you and they support you and they love you. So with that being said, with a lot of the recent highlights that have been going on, could you let your listeners and your viewers and supporters know how you're doing and your well-being?
Yeah, I definitely want to I definitely want to thank everybody for the support and the prayers. I mean, I can feel the prayers, and prayer does move things. But I want people to know that I'm fine. I mean, my name is Joseph, and Joseph was a mighty person who went through some things, but knew the Lord, and the Lord always took care of him. So I'm beyond fine.
Well, Dr. Joseph, not only did you know Joseph, but I understand that you also knew Tupac, and it was almost as if you wanted to give deuces in the air because I saw that you gave a parting quote, "I ain't mad at you."
Right. I think I was referencing before that, I talked a little bit about the walk of Jesus, and Jesus teaches us to forgive those that have, done wrong against you. And I just want them to know from the bottom of my heart, genuinely, I'm not mad at you, that things happen like they're supposed to happen. And for such a time as this, it was time for us to part our ways.
Okay, so I guess in conclusion, with the "I ain't mad at you," the residents of Nashville, the community, and the Metro Board should simply interpret that as it was good, things happen for a reason, and we'll just go off into the sunset.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, one thing I'm interested in asking, just personally, do you recall the exact moment when things started to go wrong? Like, can you actually pinpoint that moment when you saw, okay, this may go in a bad direction?
What I would say is that I noticed from, the time I came to Nashville, people aren't used to strong African Americans, and there are very few African American leaders, particularly male leaders, in our city. I mean, that was apparent to me. When you look at the C-suite of Nashville, when you look at the nonprofit sector of Nashville, there are very few African American males. So from the inception, I think there's been, lots of infatuation, I would call it, with how we did the work and why we did the work and things of that nature. But I think and there's a news group out in town that are kind of Jerry Springer / Geraldo like, kind of running around chasing the story and looking for any and everything to make news when there is really no news. But I think last year when we started talking about equity, and when we started talking about trying to put dollars where the neediest kids were, when we decided to cut a reading program that in general is great professional development and great training, but was not getting results and outcomes for our kids, particularly at the cost. When we started making the really tough decisions, things changed with a few board members. The majority was still there and understood, but I think collectively we just couldn't stay focused on the work, making tough decisions, and having the type of communication that's needed to get through making tough decisions.
Well, I can't resist. I did hear the words Jerry Springer. And since we live in an age of reality TV, so as we think about the plot, would you say that at this point a plot was developed early to begin to sabotage you, discredit you, and plan your demise?
I don't think there was a plot designed early. I do think over the last year there have been key individuals who had a mission to kind of destroy my reputation, destroy the great work that we were doing, and keep us off focus. And I don't want to be a part. I had another year and a half on my contract, and I didn't think the city should sit through a year of fighting and carrying on. I didn't come to Nashville to do that. I came to do what I did, which was improve reading outcomes for kids, improve achievement for more kids taking AP, IB, advanced courses, fewer kids getting suspended, ACT scores going up, more kids getting industry certifications. That's what I came for, establishing $24 million to establish magnet programs within the district, adding an early college from 9th grade through 12th. We always had a 10 through 12, but we brought the 9th grade in and expected kids to get the associate's degrees when they graduated. I mean, those are the things that in a very short time we did. Actually having a vision and focus for the district and a strategic plan and getting the board to work towards that plan and generating funds and collaborating with nonprofits and the mayor's office and other places to really connect the school system to the community. I sensed when I got here that there was an extreme disconnect, that the people that accessed the community, that went to their neighborhood schools really didn't see a director of schools and see staff out and about in the community, connecting the community to schools. And I worked really hard to make those connections because it's important. I mean, we've got to love the children we have, not the ones that left and we are hoping would come back. I just was clear that we had 85,000 reasons to love every day and come in and love up on them. And I tried to do that for the time I was here.
Okay, that's fair. And of course, a lot of individuals probably missed it when you were clear, when you indicated that I came here to deal with the children versus having to deal with the adults. And it seems as if you ended up having to spend so much of your productive time dealing with these adults. Now, I know that at your March 26, 2019 board meeting, you did a wonderful presentation that was very informative. Can you tell the community a little bit about that presentation at your, your version of your State of the Union?
Well, at the last board meeting, it wasn't the State of the Union. We did have a State of Schools earlier. That was just our last board meeting where I communicated that I thought that it would be beneficial for us to come to a mutual agreement to separate. And I also communicated in the areas that people have continuously been trying to say that I've done something wrong, or I just wanted to set the record straight on here are the facts in these issues, and just be accurate and clear about what happened in the areas of sexual harassment, as we talked about contracts, as we talked about other issues that continuously came up. Because again, you have these Geraldo wannabes and these Jerry Springer type newscasts that are continuously trying to reruns. How many times are we going to talk about the fact that someone drives me when needed from place to place, but I've had almost 800 meetings in the community. So what are you getting out of it? You're getting productivity and you're getting the results. But because it didn't stick once, they said, let me try twice, let me try 3 times. I've never been in a place where people did audits of audits. Like that's a new concept to me. But at the end of the day, you can't make something happen that didn't happen. And I think through the process, it's clear that nothing illegal, unethical, or immoral was done. We're just trying to do the work. And I said in that meeting, if I did anything wrong, I think I pushed too hard, too fast, with too little resource, and people made mistakes. Not immoral mistakes, not unethical mistakes.
You're human.
But mistakes. Yeah, and it's not what Sean did. I mean, I'm responsible for 11,000 employees, and I got a lot of people within the organization made mistakes. Ultimately, I'm the superintendent, so anything that happens, the buck stops with me. It happened on my watch, and I accept that. But I think people worked really hard to try to connect me to things that just weren't connectable. You know, you have somebody in human resources, 2 people under me, who didn't report things to the state.
Can I ask a question about that? I understand that you did have a professional in place in the form of an attorney that was the individual that was tasked with ensuring that that reporting did occur anytime there was an issue or discrepancy at a certain level that was to be reported to the board, that you actually had a person in position, but a qualified person in position for that particular tasking.
Well, I don't know. The person who was responsible for sending it was not a lawyer. He was a human resources employee in human relations. He just didn't turn him in. So the process.
Did you guys fire him?
We asked him to resign or he would be terminated. So we gave him the option to resign. That's customary.
Okay.
Or he would have been. So he took that option.
So he resigned, and technically you were stuck holding the bag.
Yes, pretty
Okay.
much.
You probably can't give his name, huh?
I wouldn't.
I'm just curious. You know, it's Jerry Springer. We had to talk about that for a minute.
I mean,
I had to try.
I think he might have did a show or something that people,
Okay.
it wouldn't be hard to figure out who he is. But,
Now, with the sexual harassment claims, I understand that when these things were being made, brought to your attention, that as a leadership position, you did what you were supposed to do, such as implementing training programs, also setting up a toll-free hotline to where if members of the organization felt that this happened or they were violated, they could even call a toll-free hotline.
Absolutely. So we have 11,000 employees in Metro Nashville Public Schools. And unfortunately, bad things happen. And when bad things happen, it is the responsibility of the organization to take swift action. You know, and I believe we did that in the process. Look, we had, again, the same individual who didn't turn in paperwork also had files that contained lots of information. And we believe that that information was shared with some media outlets. And, you know, as a result of that, you just had this snowballing of mess that you had to deal with, but it was a manufactured crisis that was created. You know, we had issues. There were clearly issues of sexual harassment that happened, and those individuals were addressed. Each one of them, and we thoroughly investigated and evaluated those situations. When it was reported to me, we had an instance where an employee came to me directly and communicated to me a concern. At that moment while he talked to me, I sent the message to Human Resources, and I had him in Human Resources that next morning, getting his information investigated. I mean, that's my responsibility when somebody brings it to me, to bring it to Human Resources, and for Human Resources to follow up. We had an audit in Human Resources that showed that there were no issues in the substance of the what they ultimately found in the Human Resources cases. So the cases were thoroughly investigated, and the cases, we came to the appropriate conclusions of was it sexual harassment or was it not. What the report did show, though, was that we had different processes and different people did it in different ways. Came to the right decision, but there wasn't consistency in the process. So, you know, when you look at that function, again, it's an instance of you got a news channel and you got some board members that are trying to kind of connect you to something, but there's just no substance there. There was nothing that I did illegal, unethical, immoral, and there was never an opportunity where I neglected my duties, which would have been cause for me to potentially be disciplined by the board. But that didn't happen. It didn't happen. I wasn't disciplined because I didn't do anything wrong. But they tried to create it and make the appearance like something was wrong. Again, that's the type of stuff that shouldn't happen. It's unfortunate it happened, but people do things, and you just, pray for them and hope that, they understand that you don't do people that way.
Exactly. Well, if you've just joined us, you're inside Trending with the Tribune, and my special guest today is Dr. Sean Joseph, superintendent of one of the largest school systems in our nation with well over 85,000 students. So don't touch that dial. We'll take a quick break, and we will come right back to you. Don't touch that dial.
I was 0.5 credits away from completing high school, and I didn't do it. My support team never stopped pushing for me to be better because they knew who I could become as a person. I've been given an opportunity, and I'm just thankful for it.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
If you've just joined us, my special guest today is Dr. Sean Joseph, the current superintendent of the Metro Nashville Public School System. And before we went to the break, we were just having a few discussions about some of the things that has caused a shift in our local school system. So now as we come back to the break, Dr. Joseph, I did hear the word contracts and expenses. And if I'm not mistaken, there's data that you have that shows that your expenses were actually less than your predecessor, Dr. Jesse Register. You did not spend as much money as he did.
That's correct. We spent much less, millions less than what my predecessor spent. And even with the contracts issue, I mean, the fact is there's a return on investment. I believe we invested in the right products. I mean, our children deserve world-class products, and we did what we needed to do to get those world-class products into the system to support results, and we are getting results. Again, reading scores, there's a reason reading scores in the early grades are growing. There's a reason our ACT scores are up. And that reason is we have put the right investments in the right places to get better outcomes for kids. One of the reasons I think the original board that hired me wanted me to come was because I've worked in districts that have just gotten better results than Metro Nashville Public Schools. And so to make an assertion that because I know of a product or a company that can help us execute on results, and that's a bad thing, is foolish. It's just down and out foolish. I mean,
Dr. Joseph, with these audits, did they ever provide the information to you in regards to what was the firm that did the audit, and were you able to see any data that led them to their conclusions?
Which audit are you talking about? So we had a human resources
Well,
audit?
out of all the audits that they call themselves doing to arrive at a conclusion with what we're going to do to Dr. Joseph.
Yeah, well, we knew who the auditors were. I mean, one set of auditors was the Metro internal auditor for the city, and the other was a law firm that we hired. But on for example, the law firm that we hired, they gave a confidential report to the board, and we were supposed to have the board review it, and the board would meet with administration to review it, and we would be able to speak with the lawyers and clarify how they came to their conclusions. But again, because of poor functioning with certain board members, they got the confidential report and immediately sent it to media outlets. Media outlets quickly reported on it, and we never had an opportunity to bring in the law firm to talk about how they came to draw their conclusions. So when I had to present on it and share the plan, I had a lot of questions because some of the results that were there, I really didn't know how they came to those conclusions. They were very broad, sweeping conclusions that are dangerous if you don't understand the process. I mean, I have been trained as a qualitative researcher, and I understand when you do these type of audits, process matters, and the data that you substantiate matters to determine whether you can make generalizations or not. And so, I didn't, I presented the facts on the things that I thought were clear and accurate, and I said hopefully we'd have an opportunity to meet with the lawyers to clarify the process and then help me understand if further action needed to be taken.
Okay. Well, since we are now talking about numbers, I understand that your supporters on a 9-member board did say, hey, Dr. Joseph is here, and there are some things that he can improve upon. And of course, there are some areas where he's performing well. But 3 individuals decided to take an ink pen, and they all marked the same markings across the board.
Right.
However, looking at the range of the numbers with the evaluation, they were very inconsistent with the
Right.
rest of the 9 members. So does that sound personal, sabotage, and motive?
Well, I think there was definitely inconsistency, and I think there was definite evidence to suggest that some of the scores that I received were lower than what should have been done. The fact is, an evaluation, the way we set up our evaluation, and Michael Casserly, who is the president of the Council of Great City Schools, communicated that Nashville has one of the most rigorous evaluation tools in America. And we're proud of that. It should be rigorous. But if you weaponize it, if you take it to try to use it to do bad things to people, then you won't have anybody who will want to use that tool or participate in it. And one of the things that we talked about in this last evaluation cycle is that it's just a mid-year evaluation. It doesn't count. It's a way to check, are we making progress or are we not making progress in certain key areas? And if we're not making progress, then it gives us an opportunity to ask, do we have to put more resource to an area? Do we have to change a strategy for an area? We didn't have those conversations this year because there were a number of people that were just intent to weaponize that evaluation, to blame, to say that somebody's not doing something. So the purpose of the evaluation system was failed. I mean, it was broken. We didn't get the opportunity to look at an area that's low and not say it's a bad grade. Instead, say, it's mid-year. We're not making the progress we thought we would be making. We have from now until the end of the year to change the trajectory. What do we need to do as a board? Do we need to authorize adding more resource? Do we need to ask the superintendent what's the strategy here? That would be the effective use of the process. But unfortunately, because we weren't functioning well, that did not happen. But I do think we should continue to have a evaluation system that's rigorous. We just got to make sure we have board members, and I think we need rubrics. We need to have clear rubrics put in place so people just can't give somebody a 1 even though the data suggests they should have a 4.
Exactly.
Because that's what happened, because we didn't calibrate that. So I think in the evolution, as they bring on a new director and as they talk about evaluations, they should work with the consultant to ensure that there are consistent rubrics so the rest of the board can check whether somebody's giving low scores or high scores, or have a process to throw scores out if people don't take the time to take it seriously, because it is a very serious process.
And Dr. Joseph, that's obviously what happened with you, because in looking at the scoring, there is a consistent parallel among all the areas. And then when you get to this one area and you can clearly identify who did those 3 evaluations, it's almost as if they did those evaluations mad, crying, and in the dark. Because you could clearly see the difference.
Yeah, those are your words, not mine. But.
Well, I mean, listen, we did say Jerry Springer. Now, I understand that there were about 40 stakeholders supposedly interviewed, and they made a claim that nothing improved under your leadership. Is there any access available to those 40 stakeholders that participated in that interview?
As I said, unfortunately, we were unable to speak with the legal team to ask questions, but I had questions about a lot of that data and where they came up with that. And we have 11,000 employees. To take a small group, I mean, again, as a qualitative researcher, you can't make generalizations based upon a small sample size, and that's what was done to weaponize some of that conversation.
Now, Dr. Joseph, you did inherit a school system that had its significant issues, especially when it comes to, say, for example, low achievement among Black students. Just for purpose of this discussion, I understand that you and your team, you were very diligent. You did put together a good framework, and they still were not happy. Do you think maybe they did not give you time, your team time, to do proper implementation? Because it seems as if they just were not happy no matter if you went to the left or to the right.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that we stopped doing that helped us tremendously was having outside support to help us facilitate discussions about our strategic planning work and the progress that we were making with the district. We had an organization, the Panasonic Foundation, that was working with us. They are experts in governance. They got so frustrated with the board that they quit us because they clearly recognized that the board, many board members just did not want to follow proper governance procedures. And when they stopped working with us, I think our work together in staying focused and talking about what's reasonable, all of that communication just collapsed.
Okay.
And we ended up in a situation where we weren't effectively having discussions around children's performance and why this was the case and what we can do, because we got into a mode of blaming and then having to justify our actions.
Okay. Well, Dr. Joseph, I understand that you presented a very attractive budget, almost close to $40,000. And this was going to do things such as give bus drivers a pay raise, also bring in a cost of living adjustment, and continue to support something that's very important to every learner is pre-K. So how could that have gone wrong with the board? That was a very attractive budget with some good focus areas.
Yeah, well, just to clarify, so the budget proposal that I submitted to the board was about $31 million. And that $31 million, we had dollars for pre-K, we had dollars for textbooks, we had dollars to give employees a 3% raise, we had dollars to support some social emotional learning and some human resources and instructional technology capacity. Bandwidth. That was a pretty conservative ask, $31 million, seeing how we only got $5 million last year. But I recognize the fact that we did not have a tax increase last year, and we really didn't have money as a city. And I think I was trying to be conservative but balance student needs and adult needs. Now, the board since then has changed the recommendation to be, I believe, about a $76 million request, asking for a 10% raise for teachers and asking for, a step for teachers, which is a lot of money. I mean, that would be the greatest increase we've gotten in the history of this city in a time when we know that there's no money. So I just strive to be realistic. And what I didn't want to do was pit adults against children, because the mayor, they put this request in and it was just approved at the last board meeting. Now they have to go to the mayor and plead their case on why we need that type of money. The mayor will ultimately give us a recommended budget. We'll have to go back then and reconcile that budget and then take the amount that the mayor has given us to the council for approval. And the council has the ability to add more dollars, but they can't take dollars away. But for them to add dollars, they got to take away from another agency within the city. So that's why typically, we have over the past 2 years, I think 1 year they gave us $900,000. Last year we got an additional $2 million. But to do that, they had to take away from other agencies. So it's just a difficult time. I mean, I do understand the board wants to, send a statement to the city that our teachers deserve more pay and that we needed more resources and that we have great needs. But I think it's important to be realistic and collaborate with the city to have realistic expectations. And unfortunately, I just think that this current budget that was approved, I mean, unless I'm unaware of a shortfall, a windfall of money that's in the city, I think it's just an unrealistic request. And I think there are going to be a lot of people let down if they really believe that 10% can happen this year.
Well, look on the bright side. You presented a budget that was conservative. And then once you decide to just go on about your business, they submit another budget that doesn't get approved. At least you do not get blamed.
But you know what? It's not I don't play a blame game because
You know today I'm talking with Dr. Sean Joseph, the superintendent of the Nashville Metro Public School System. And when we return, we will begin to get a little more unchained and unhinged as we draw to a close.
That's right,
So
yeah.
don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Now, Dr. Joseph, I don't think the school board realized that coming into this area, a lot of faces that look like mine, that look like yours, they have someone to look up to. And we have a deficit with our young black boys. You just have to call it like it is. And with that being said, there's going to be a void in their lives because when they see someone like you, it gives them goals. And looking at one of those goals under your leadership, I understand that you significantly reduced the school suspensions, especially among African American boys.
You know, that was an important goal because in this zip code here in Nashville, one of our zip codes has one of the highest incarceration rates in the country, and we can do better by that. And I think you know, it starts with kids getting an education, because I truly believe that education is a great equalizer. And if we get kids a high quality education, the likelihood of them being in someone's prison cell is much less likely. You know, so for us, it was about understanding why are kids being disrupted and what can we do about it? What's the cause of it, and how can we address the causes? And quite frankly, we've not put enough resource to that. And that's the work that has to happen, not just in this budget cycle, but in future budget cycles. I mean, there's a lot of kids that experience a lot of stress in the city. You know, the disparities between those who have and those who have not are significant. And we can't, those who have cannot forget those who have not. And we've got to make sure we've got the right resources in schools. So if kids manifest their stress and disruptive behaviors, we are prepared to address it.
Now, thinking of disparity, I did see something where under your leadership there was an accusation that black children, their reading scores did not improve. Now, would you say that that doesn't have merit, and you're just one person, and it has to take a village? If the black parents are not aggressively and actively participating with the school system, with the things that you outlined, how can that be your fault?
Yeah, well, I had not heard that. What I do know is that when we look at our measures of academic progress in reading and math, that we've seen growth in every student groups, including African Americans, growth. Now, the absolute value is a challenge. So though we're growing kids aren't on grade level, and that's work we need to do. But achievement levels have not decreased in my tenure. That's not true.
And see, that's why I was wondering if you had access to those 40 stakeholders who supposedly were interviewed principals and made those claims. So I think that goes back to the beginning of all of these audits and all of these reports, but where is the data?
Yeah, exactly, and we've not seen it yet. And you know, all of our decisions have to be made with accurate facts and data.
Okay. Now, Dr. Joseph, I understand that with your work, with your many accomplishments, you did enhance the gifted and talented programs in the school system.
Yeah, you know, when I first came, it amazed me that you could only get access to gifted and talented programs at the elementary level in certain schools. And you know, I think all children have gifts. That just takes a great educator to pull it out of them. So we made sure that every school had at least a half-time gifted and talented teacher for all elementary schools. And in the middle schools, we brought honors classes back because when I arrived, we did not have honors classes in our programs. And I thought that was one of the legitimate concerns parents had. Yeah, I have a highly able child, and they can't take advanced English or advanced math if they're in a middle school. That was the decision that was made years ago prior to my arrival. It was one that I changed because we need to make sure we're pushing kids.
Okay. Now, Dr. Joseph, since you're almost no longer in that superintendent chair, what happens when you are conducting business in Nashville and you have to engage with one of the former board members? What will that engagement look like since you're no longer in their in that leadership position?
It'd be fine. I mean, I'll treat them as people, and I'll be respectful, and courteous, and we'll depending on what the purpose of our engagement is. I mean, not my friend, so I don't have to do a whole lot of talking, but I'll be courteous, of course.
And see, Dr. Joseph, I heard that we don't have to do a lot of talking, so it would be hello, how are you, goodbye, and don't ask me for anything.
Well, I don't necessarily function that way. I mean, if they needed something, I'd be willing to support in any way I can if they needed it. But I mean, the big thing is I need us all, if we're together focused on the mission of helping kids, then we can be hand in hand working next to one another doing that type of work. I mean, that's what I hope to be focused on after my superintendency anyway.
Well, Dr. Joseph, you're very smart. Everybody's recognized that. Very, very intelligent and extremely focused and very mission oriented. And of course, you are going to land on your feet wherever you fall. So with that being in mind, what does your future look like? Are you going to stay in education?
I'll definitely be in education. I mean, it's my passion. It's definitely my calling. I'm still processing what next steps are. I mean, I have a lot of options. I'll talk a little more about it, hopefully on April 28th. I'm actually going to have an opportunity to go on Ernie Allen's show on 92Q at 1 o'clock. And we'll talk a little bit in more depth about what some of my thinking is up until that point. I'm finalizing some things. Hopefully it'll be concrete by then. But if not, I'll definitely give an update on at least where I am in my thinking. But whatever I do, it's going to be to support kids and support families and try to continue to get families to advocate and to work to get kids the resources that they need. So again, they can get the education that they'll need to be prepared for today's America.
Okay, well, Dr. Joseph, of course you have a really large fan base here in the area. Is there an email or social media, Facebook, Twitter, that the community can continue to contact you or engage? Do you do Twitter, social media?
Yeah, absolutely. So anybody who has a LinkedIn account could just pull my name up, Sean Joseph, on LinkedIn. Or if you have a Twitter account, you can go to Unchained Joseph, at Unchained Joseph, and I'll be there.
Well, I'm trying not to go the Django route because I know that story. So I'm just going to think of Unchained Dr. Joseph, and it sounds as if your light is still going to shine, the power is going to be present as ever, and that you are going to continue to beam and grow no matter what.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for being here.
And I hope to see you again. This isn't a goodbye. This is a what's next.
That's what I'm talking about. Okay. Well, there you have it. This has been another edition of Trending with the Tribune, and this has been a special presentation to give you insights directly from the superintendent of the Metro Nashville Public School System, Dr. Sean Joseph. So continue to follow us, and we will definitely have Dr. Joseph back as we let you know what his next steps are, and we will continue to follow him, his success, and all of his endeavors. And until next time, be sure to visit us on the website and get your subscription at www.tntribune.com. And until next time, bye now. Why, hi there. Welcome to Trending with the Tribune, your source for news for the community of color. As a matter of fact, for all colors. Would you like to be a guest or to advertise on Trending with the Tribune? Of course you would. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. All you have to do is send an email to sales1501@aol.com or visit the website. The web address is www.tntribune.com. Be sure to visit us soon, and we look forward to having you as the next guest, or at least advertising your business, your product, or your service. And until next time, I am Miss June, your host of Let's Talk, all things business, speech, and motivation.